Hi, everyone. It's Candace Craw-Goldman with quantumhealers.com. Hi, everyone. It's Candace Craw-Goldman with quantumhealers.com. Back again for our third and final installment of a series of talks with quantum healer Patricia Grootjans. Hi, Patricia.
Hi, Candace. Nice to see you again.
It's so nice to see you again, too. We've kind of been drawing this out, but we're going to wrap it up today. And Patricia and I, before I pressed record, were just saying, now, where were we before? Where were we in talking? But we were talking a lot about healing, a lot about water, our connections there. But that kind of brought something up. And maybe you could speak on this just right away. I have an exercise partner, and yesterday she had just turned 50. So, I am 13 years older than she is. And she was talking about her memory, like her short-term memory. And when you're our age, or of an age, or you're in your 50s or 60s, you tend to want to blame some of these short-term memory, or that just happened, or why did I walk into this room, things on age. I don't know. I think there is so much going on in the world, so much.
Yeah,
So much. It's like if you have a barrage of things happening to you at all times, how in the world can you see everything? How in the world
yeah,
can you hold on? Have you find that to be true in your life right now too? Maybe.
exactly. Well, it's interesting because, we're going through this big cleanup of the house, and I was going through all my old diaries, like from 30 years, right? And I was reading down the diaries from like 15 years ago. That was around the time that I had my near-death experience. And my life was a crisis on all levels, like relationships, housing, jobs, health, on all levels. It was just everything fell to pieces. And anyway, when I was reading through my diaries and I was realizing, like, oh my God, I've been through so much. But the interesting thing is, I also did channelings, and I channeled, well, I mean, I don't know if you can call it channeling, but I was receiving
Yes.
angel messages. So I was reading through these messages today, and I thought, wow, that really helped me to move through all those complicated situations. And I mean, everyone has a time in their life where everything seems to come together or happening at the same time. And astrologically, this is often when Uranus is making a certain transit, and especially the opposition when we're like 42, around that age. And then everything seems to be upside down. Our whole life seems to be upside down. And so, but I realized that by working with angels, that is so, so powerful. That really helped me through all those complicated situations, and to keep my calm, to keep my calmness, and to be,
Yeah.
stand my ground. And I think, wow. And sometimes when everything is going smoothly, we tend to forget these things.
Yes.
And I guess that's the beauty of going through a crisis, or, I mean, not even a crisis, but, when so many things are happening in your life. And I mean, sometimes you could call that the sandwich model, you know, when life is
Yes.
being like a big sandwich, like you have to take care of your children or grandchildren, or your parents, and taking care of so many people.
Yeah.
And I just realized today how important it is that to realize that we don't have to do it alone. When we are in tune with source and with the light, with angels, yeah, that's so powerful. And yeah, so I think that's probably a big message, that we don't have to do it all by ourselves when we tune into source, tune into God. Yeah. And I have a feeling that somehow maybe this message could be important today, because right before we got on this call, I was felt drawn to to take a card, and I have the Dutch version, so I'm sorry, this isn't the English version, but it's the mermaids and dolphin cards from Doreen Virtue.
Mhm.
And of course, I love these cards because they're always so related to water. So this is the card that came up today, right before this call,
Okay.
and I will translate it.
And it looks
Protection.
a little familiar with my little bit of German, but I won't guess in public like this. So you tell
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Dutch is kind of similar to German, but it says protection.
Hmm.
You and all your loved ones are in safe hands and are being protected by the universe. Now, isn't that a beautiful message for today?
It is quite beautiful. I really feel that, and that's lovely. The message I kind of got today a little bit too was because I find that, and you already said it just a second ago, I find that when I feel that it's so much, it's usually because I'm trying to take care of everything outside of myself but me.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I've got
Yeah.
the animals, I've got my dad, I've got the farm, I've got special projects on the farm, I've got my clients, I've got the quantum healers, I've got the BQH students, I've got my husband, I have my friends, I mean, and they're, you have to have some sort of input with friends or they go away.
Yeah.
Friends are
Yeah.
not just what I and there's and when I'm thinking of that and I'm trying to streamline some of my life for self-care, I have to constantly remind myself not to put myself last in that
Yeah.
list
Yeah.
because that's going to fail, right? That's just going to fail. And okay, I'm getting a little choked up to say this. What I want to say to you is I really think of you as one of those friends I need to stay in touch with because
Oh,
you're always so kind and understanding, and we can always connect so nicely, even if there's a long space between the last time that we did connect. And I appreciate you so much. And I've had to, postpone this this final interview of three, I think at least twice. And there was a great reason to do it again today. I'm like, no,
yeah.
I'm going to finish this one. And I have a substitute person who came in to relieve my sick caregiver today so that we were able to do this. But thank you. The angels,
Oh,
yes. The angels, reminding you to take a breath and do some things
exactly.
for
And
yourself.
thank you so much, Candace. And I feel exactly the same. I feel there's just this soul connection between us.
Mm.
And it would be nice to one day if we could explore this in a session to see
Well,
what
let's do
past
that.
life we may have shared, because I really feel very strongly that there is a connection.
I would love to do
And
that. I would love to do that. And
yeah.
maybe, what we could even do, because one of the projects that I'm trying to get out and into my YouTube list is a tandem session that I did um, with Donna McMurtry while her sister
Ah,
Diana was facilitating it. And we did that in the immersion class as a demonstration. Would you be up for something like that?
oh, I would love to.
Well,
Yes, I
let's
would
do
love
that.
to.
Let's do that
Yeah.
because I bet there's going to be some connections. And one of the last places I was, and I was apologizing to Patricia before we got going, was I didn't completely finish her book at all. But you know where I got to? I got to the part where in every chapter that I read, I find alignment and connection. Every single chapter with something in my life. And although we are in Kansas with, no oceans, no seas here, but we
Yeah,
have the ancient, we have the landscape of an ancient bottom of an ocean, right? And
exactly.
so where I was, thinking so much about the cave, some of your cave experiences and the mermaids, and you just showed the mermaid card
Oh,
and about
yes.
the underwater cave. And I was in the one with, some of the dreams in the underwater cave here in Kansas, that's covered in the sea crystals, the ancient sea, right? Where there's no water
Wow.
down there, but being down there was amazing. And I bet if we did a tandem session, something like that would come up.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah, because caves are so related to the Divine Mother. And I believe that even if there's not a physical ocean near, if there's a cave, I think there's the energy of water, isn't there? So yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah,
I don't know. I know I talked about it a little bit when we went to visit this, and it's been a little more than a year. You go down. It's six stories down into the ground. You take an elevator down, and I went with my husband and our daughter Lauren and our three grandchildren, and and we went on a tour, and we were down there for a little while, and I'm a little bit claustrophobic just in general. I like wide open spaces. I don't like to be crowded. And I was actually okay. The elevator part bothered me the most
yeah,
because I knew it
yeah.
was the only way in and out. And I'm like, is there a spare elevator? And they're like, nope, this is it. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Any, anyway,
Yeah.
they take horses down there, horses and
Oh,
carts.
really?
Oh yeah, that's how they mined down there. It's
Oh,
crazy.
yes.
Crazy. Yeah. So anyway, uh, down there, I'll just leave you this with this one part. It really bothered Tom, who is not typically very claustrophobic, but I watched him, Patricia, walk. I mean, the whole time we were down there, and he couldn't wait to get out. He
Yeah.
walked like this the whole way. Something about the whole
Really?
energy field. It was as if somebody, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah,
just
yeah,
walked like this through the whole thing. I'm like, do you see what's going on with you walking? He's like, no, I feel like I'm standing straight up. This is weirding me out being here, and I feel funny being down here
yeah, 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 yeah. It also kind of reminds me of the pyramids
yeah,
when you say this.
because
And
of the feeling of the energy down there, you mean?
yes, but also I don't know. You probably know Elizabeth Haig's book Initiation,
Yes.
where she goes through all these tests and trials in the pyramids, and
Yep.
where she has to
I
walk
know
through
of it.
very.
I've heard it referenced before and summarized. I have not, to be clear, read it, but I have
Uh,
heard. Yes.
well, I don't know. I don't remember the details because I was 18 when I read it, so it's really a long time ago. But I remember that she described how she had to walk through these narrow hallways in the pyramid. And I think that's probably a similar experience as walking in a cave, isn't it? And it
Yeah.
feels as if you're underneath the earth, as if you're in another layer of the earth. So I feel there's some kind of connection between caves and pyramids. Maybe are the caves are quite similar to underwater pyramids or under earth pyramids because they seem to have this similar energy. And when I think about the sessions that I've done, often when we end up in a cave, or rather, we start in a cave, it brings us to a whole other level of existence, as if it's like a portal to another dimension. And I
Mhm.
think pyramids can do exactly the same
Mhm.
as the caves do in my sessions. So there's something about the caves that can transport us to another dimension.
Mhm.
And when I think about most of the sessions that I've been in caves, it was because of the water that there was always like a source of water inside of the cave.
Yep.
And when we would drink of that water, or maybe, sprinkle the water, this is when it would happen that we would enter a whole new dimension. So water is also like the portal, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So while you're talking, um, the tandem session that I was referring to that I was working on. So we were doing that in the immersion class, which of course was very much about water influence. And just outside was a lake. And in the session, the light hit the lake, and it was all about the water and the light and the connection with what was going on. But I don't know if you could tell, I did a quick little sketch here. So
Ah,
these are, imagine these are representative of people. So Donna and Diana, Diana was the facilitator. Donna was one of the people. I was one of the people. We laid on the floor with one of those copper pyramids.
oh, wow.
Okay. So we had a copper pyramid around us while the class was around us. And both of us, as soon as we went into trance after the induction was read, both of us saw an inverted pyramid like this on this side
Yeah.
with Dolores and her team and Emoto all here. Some people, and then they had, like, we had observers around here. They had observers around here. And it was this whole conversation. It was amazing. So I'm getting ready to get that.
Wow.
I'm going to release almost the entire session on YouTube. I'm real excited about that. These tandem sessions have been, well, they've been extraordinary because the ones that have been, well, almost all of them I've done with colleagues, you know? So
Yeah.
we're in a certain sort of relationship and mindset already. And then
Yeah.
combining that it's just very exciting. So thank you.
Exactly.
I'm excited. We'll set this up.
Oh, yes, I would love to. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
speaking of colleagues, though, you have come off of the water conference that I'm so sorry that I missed. I tried so hard, but once again, another wrench got thrown into and you know what? That was the day, I think that was the day of the attempted assassination of our former president. I believe that was
Yes,
the
that's
same
right.
day. It
That's
was the
right.
same day, and I was lamenting missing your the whole conference because it hadn't yet started, but it must have been full or something, and I just couldn't get in. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that there must have been a reason for that, and not that the let's just say the energy was disrupted
Yeah.
so much in our country. And I got a phone call from family and people were asking, and then it was very, very interesting to watch the aftermath here. And I wondered how much, you know, people say, Tom makes fun of me a lot about connecting events,
Yeah.
and he's like,
Yeah.
how can you connect those things? And I always think, how can you not connect absolutely everything? I come from the
Yeah.
complete exact opposite. And I remember thinking, not terribly long after finding out the news, about wondering what sort of chaos is going to continue to occur here in our country.
Yeah.
Um, I actually, you know what I actually felt good about? I felt good about knowing there was a group of people like you doing what you were doing,
Oh, yeah.
holding, it was like, even though you may have had no idea what was going on until much later or whatever, knowing that you were over there doing what you were doing for
Yeah.
a length of time, because VEDA Austin, let's be honest, who does longer webinars than VEDA Austin? I don't think
Yeah.
anybody on the planet, like nobody.
Yeah, that's right. I think it lasted about 11 or 12 hours or
Oh,
so.
it's
Yeah. And which is really unique because, well, not unique because all her webinars tend to be
yeah,
that long.
really long.
And she's really one of a kind. I don't know anyone else who can do that for such a long time. And I
No,
mean, she lives in New Zealand, of course, so she's 12 hours ahead of me in Holland. And so when she started, it was like 8 in the morning, I believe, and it was 8 in the evening for me. And so it was my time to speak like around 11. I was, blessed to be able to speak for an hour during that webinar. And I continued to listen to some other people, but it was midnight. I mean, it was really nighttime for me, of course. So at some point I went to sleep, and when I woke up, I put on the webinar again, and they were still on doing the webinar, so I could actually finish the last part of the webinar with them. But it was during the webinar that one of the speakers said, well, we are in this beautiful energy and we are sharing all these intense stories about near-death experiences. But I don't know if anyone has seen, but we just received the news that this has happened to Trump.
Yeah.
And so that was really during the webinar. And so, yeah, we were fully aware of, well, not fully because we didn't know the
Sure.
details, of course, but it felt really symbolic because this webinar was about near-death experiences and the dream time, the dream world,
Yes.
and how our consciousness continues, and how magnificent these experiences were of all these people going through near-death experiences. And yeah, it was really intense because, of course, all these people had traumatic experiences when it happened that led to a near-death experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, this was going on. And, but I also felt that we are able to put it in a different perspective because we know that when we are meant to be here, we will be here. And when we are meant to live, we will live. And I think what was the general theme of all these people who were sharing their stories about their near-death experience was that we all felt that we came back with a purpose, and that we all came back with a new abilities, new gifts, but most of all, a purpose to share what we had witnessed, what we had experienced, what we had felt, seen, heard, and how amazing life is. And it was so beautiful because there were some people who had gone through near-death experiences multiple times in their life. And I've seen that. And
Yeah.
I've
I
also
had clients
noticed
like
that.
that too.
Yes,
Yeah, oh, sure. Yeah.
interesting, huh?
Crazy. It's like, if it's not time, it's not time.
Exactly. And it often happens, it starts with birth, at birth. I mean, some people or some babies, they tend to choke during the birth process when the umbilical cord is around their neck, for example, or could be other causes. So I've seen it in sessions multiple times that people can have their first near-death experience at the time of birth. But it seems as if, especially those people are sensitive to dying and being reborn in the same incarnation. So someone was saying, like, is possible that some people are more sensitive to go through the death process again? Or is it a kind of longing to the other side, longing to source, longing
Yeah.
to move away from the earth? And I thought to myself, no, it's such a strong power to live that you are able to return and to survive and to come back and know that you are meant to share a message and meant to share about our consciousness, that we are so much more than the physical body and the physical brain, and that our consciousness is unlimited, and that our consciousness is connected with each and every other consciousness in the universe, not only here on planet Earth, but also other parts of the universe. And once we come to realize that, and we are able to move our consciousness to that frequency where we are able to connect with other realms, other consciousness, it's magnificent. And then we can connect with anything. We can connect with the spirit of a mountain, or we can connect with the spirit of water. And I believe, I mean, we've talked about it, and I'm sure that you see it in a similar way, that the water is God. Water is source. It's life itself. And when we started this conversation, we were talking about our memories, and when we get older, that we all seem to get these issues with our memories. But I think what also happens when we get older is that our body tends to get dry. So when we focus on nurturing our body with the right sort of water and liquids, then we are able to keep our memory alive because water
The
holds
battery, it's
memory.
like a battery. It's like trying to have a battery work without its water. Absolutely. I
Exactly.
often think of Dolores, and how truly, no none of us who love and respect Dolores want to compare our skill level with hers because she was in
Yeah.
a class by herself.
Yeah.
However, I think we have to acknowledge how much we, without Dolores being here directly in body, we have expanded what we do to understand something as simple as Dolores's advice used to be don't drink too much water before a session. And I'm like, the exact opposite. Please be
Yeah.
very, very hydrated. I will be very hydrated. It does
Yeah.
not matter how many times you need to get up and use the toilet. And I even say, think of it this way. The more you go, the more the flow, and the more I think we're making progress here. At the same time, don't worry if you don't get up because you might be one of those people who can just like,
Yeah.
not have to.
Exactly.
But that the freedom and the understanding and is sort of the brain lubrication coming with that
Yes.
vibration is it's you're spot on.
Yeah. Exactly.
It
And I
works.
guess that I guess that a lot of these ideas that we used to have about drinking or when we should drink, they really come from our childhood, doesn't it? Like, I mean, I remember that my mother used to say, "Don't drink before you eat, or otherwise you won't have any space for your vegetables." Or
Or even
yeah,
ask and all the asking of permission, right? The
yeah,
the whole time you're in school needing permission to relieve
exactly.
your bladder, it's so awful.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
think about it. It's so awful that this one person up there can control the bladders of 20 or 30 young kids just
yeah, yeah,
by the
yeah,
hierarchy of
exactly.
structure. And how about oh, I know this is kind of going off into left field, but I think it's interesting and it's interesting about in the connecting consciousness kind of way. Some Native American type people all over the world who are not needing to be in a lot of clothing, nor do they have anything like diapers like we do in the West. They carry around their infants and they don't get peed on, they don't get urinated a lot on. And some of the Westerners I've noticed have, seen these stories. They will ask, well, how are you doing that? Your baby doesn't have a diaper on. They're like, well, we just take them over to the bush when they need to go.
Yeah,
And the question then always is, well, how do you need to go? And the next part's my favorite, which is the mother looks and is like, how
yeah,
wouldn't I know? Because they're so connected, right? Their
exactly.
consciousness are so connected. They
Yeah,
just know.
exactly. It's so interesting that you mentioned this because yesterday I saw just a very small piece of a podcast with a Dutch singer. He's kind of like a folk singer, and he was telling this interviewer that they never put on diapers when their children were babies, and he said that he often got that question like, "But they should be
And I'm like,
pooping all
where'd that
over."
come from? See, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you by saying, as I'm even talking about the baby and the peeing, I'm like, where's this coming from? I have a second tape in my head going, why are you talking about that right now?
Yeah,
This is why, because it connects with something you just heard, right?
exactly. And by the way, I'm sorry. My dog is trying to get attention. I don't hope that you can hear him
But
too loudly, but
you know what? As long as you're doing that, I'm going to pause the recording. Pause.
okay.
First, I have to record it again for a second.
Mhm.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
I just quickly went to the freezer because before we started, I put on water in the freezer to do the experiment. And I just had a quick look. So this is the picture. I don't think you can see it right.
I can too. I absolutely
Yeah.
can see it.
But I don't see anything specific yet. The only thing I see is pyramids, but it's not really.
That's fantastic. That's so
Yeah.
exciting.
Okay,
We
but anyway, if you would like to talk about this, but we
yes, I
could do
do
that.
want to talk about it. And if you did you take pictures with your phone? Okay,
Yeah,
good. So
exactly.
uh, you've probably done it way more than I have, but I know that sometimes you don't see it right away.
Yeah,
You have to go back and look, and then you'll see some of the stuff. And then, but you've been doing this a lot more than I have. But we make these petri dishes available in most of the immersion classes uh, to either try or to try off
fantastic.
hours or whatever. And it's an amazing thing
Oh, fantastic.
to play with.
Yeah,
So yeah, pyramids. That's great.
yeah,
So you were talking about we took that little break. You were talking about the Dutch folk singer and the baby,
exactly.
and
Yes.
I didn't
And
know
he
if
was
you were done with
sharing.
that or not.
Oh, sorry.
That's
Well,
okay.
he was saying that they never use diapers for their babies, and people would ask like, "Don't they pee on you?" Or and he said, "Of course not." He said, "Babies are able to communicate, and you just have to tune into them, and you will know when they want to say that they need to do something. You will feel it physically or intuitively." So he says there are so many ways to communicate, but we tend to forget nowadays because we're so busy. And he said, but if you take the time to slow down and to be with your baby, and he said that you will know, and they will, will be trained to go. How do you say that in English?
Um, well, I think that's probably a good way of
Yeah.
saying it right there. Yes,
Okay.
they'll be trained to go when you want them to.
Yeah.
It reminds me too, Patricia, of this whole thing about putting a baby in a completely different room from where you
Yeah.
sleep, which I'm pretty sure we must have talked about this before because it has never made any sense to me. As an animal lover, you can look at any mammal out there, any mammal. Show me one mammal that takes their babies and makes them sleep in a different place than the mother. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Exactly.
happen. This is unnatural and ridiculous. And I
Yeah.
understand safety, bed, rollover. I get all of the things. Don't worry
Yeah.
about that. But I don't think that it is helpful, this idea, in the regard of, first of all, making your baby feel safe. They know
Exactly.
that they're alone. They
Exactly.
know that they're disconnected from their mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it doesn't help with relation. I don't think it's just not right.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Yeah. I will always kept my babies close to me, and I know that I had a lot of criticism about it.
Me too.
But I know when I see my daughter, who, her child will be one next week, and so, um, but she's luckily so different, and yeah, I mean, I think the generation who are having babies right now, they're so much more in following the natural pace, and I think it's a really good development. Yeah,
I hope
yeah.
so. I hope so. I know birth has become so medicalized, and um, with my volunteer work with Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, I find myself in the labor and delivery, space
Ah,
in the hospital a lot. And
yeah,
the sort of horrifying thing to me, I don't know if this is happening all over the world, I suspect possibly, but the rate of cesarean section is so much higher now than it ever used to be.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah,
find that really interesting. And there is a huge to do anything within a hospital in a natural way, they really curtail mothers' choices. Let's put it that
yeah,
way. There's a
yeah,
lot of things. I mean, I never realized something as simple as you probably ought to leave that cord connected to the placenta for a while because there's still a whole lot of blood in there that goes to that baby.
yeah,
And even my own kids, first thing they did was cut that cord and you
Yeah.
know, instantly, and
Yeah.
I never even read about the idea of
Yeah.
maybe that's not a good idea until they were children, right?
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Yeah.
I
I
think
think
that's
it could be something um, cultural, I believe, because my cousin has been a doula in the United States for about 25 years until she came back to Europe. But so she could see the differences between women going into labor in the US compared to Holland. And I feel blessed that here in Holland we tend to have a priority of having natural births. And so women have a choice, for example, and they're being, motivated to have births at home. Many people have water birth over here. And I feel blessed because I realize that's not common in other countries. And yeah, I mean, yeah, when my daughter was pregnant, she had to go put on a whole plan with uh, how do you call it? I'm sorry for my
I
English.
don't know. Yeah, no, you have fantastic English. The midwife, you mean? There's
Yes,
midwife.
exactly, with the
Yes,
midwife.
yes.
And so that she would be in control over every little detail that she would like or not like, or when she would allow the midwife to, step in and to do something.
Mhm.
And I think, wow, this is such a blessing that we are living in this country where women are allowed to have control over their own body and control over their own process of giving birth. It's the start of life, and how we go through that birth process is kind of, well, I think it's symbolic
Sure.
for how we step into other situations in our life. And when I look at the birth chart, because you know that I'm an astrologer, when we look at the rising sign, it represents the birth process, how we entered this incarnation, but it also represents how we enter every other new situation that we encounter in our life. The first day that we go to school, or the first day that we walk into an office, or every step in our life that is new for us, we kind of repeat the birth process. So the themes around that birth process is so important. And even if it wasn't an ideal situation, because I think it's probably never ideal, but there are so many ways how to change it when birth itself has been problematic or traumatic. I think we can even change that. And now I just realized that when you have a near death experience and you come back, that's also like being born again.
Yes, it is.
And it feels quite similar. Yeah, of course, not physically, but well, I think physically probably as well. But especially emotionally, it's like entering a new life again. And yeah,
You're making me think of so many things. Two things I want to mention about the birth process. It was with my second child, our son Dylan, and uh, I'd been in the hospital for a little while, and my waters hadn't broken. I was almost completely dilated, but my waters had not broken. So back
yeah,
to water, right? And
exactly.
and it was intense that last little bit. And I remember the doctor at the time asking my permission to break my waters
Yeah,
to sort of hurry on the process. And now in the end, I'm very grateful that I got asked that, because there were some other things that I did not get my permission asked for. Believe you me, I know that now.
yeah,
But I remember him asking, and I remember I didn't have a position or an understanding of what that meant, what it really meant. It seemed like, well, I know it's what happened naturally with my daughter. I already been through that. I can't imagine that there would be a reason to say no. Oh my gosh, do I wish I would have said no. I really wish I would have said no,
yeah,
because my waters weren't ready to break. That's why they hadn't broken yet. And
yeah,
when he punctured that amniotic sac, it was violent, and my
Yeah.
entire experience that was not medicated with pain medications, no epidurals, none of that, it became so violent that I was almost blacking out. I mean, like I was
Yeah.
televisioning, that the pain
Yeah.
was uh,
Yeah.
crazy. And it wasn't until many years later did I realize it was the act of breaking the waters. It was disruption of what was natural, right?
Exactly.
It was not time for those waters
Yeah.
to be released. Um, but that the second part of that memory has me asking you this. I know you know this. I'm almost sure you know this answer because you know Veda so much. And so we're circling back around to Veda and your webinar, which you have to talk about a little bit about what you presented there. Um, she has frozen so many different kinds and types of water and egg albumin and different seawater and all that. Has she ever frozen amniotic fluid?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Yes.
Tell me about, do
Yes.
you know? Do
Yes.
you remember
Um,
what any of the results have been like?
I think it was probably she created a book with all these images, and I think there's a picture of it in the book. And I can imagine that there's a picture of it in her new book. I haven't received it yet, but I'm pretty sure that it will be in the new book
Sure.
that she recently published
Yeah.
because it's so beautiful. Of course, I know that she showed it during one of the webinars, and it was beautiful. But I can't really mention any details about
Sure.
the shapes that were in it because I haven't remembered that.
Uh,
But she also tested breast milk, for example, and urine. She also tries that because it's a fluid of our life. So yeah, and they
yeah.
carry messages, and they even can give information about our health when you look at the images. And
Mhm.
she also gave examples about that people could actually notice in the imagery that the water would show when urine was frozen, for example, that there was something going on and that she would need to have a checkup. And so I think there's so much to learn about water. And what I'm trying to do is to communicate with water and to ask for answers, for example. And I still find it difficult because I've noticed that water is so super sensitive to responding to our state of mind.
Yes.
And I always tend to be busy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as if I'm always rushing things or like, and I want to do it quick, quick, quick. And the water shows that
Yes, it
it
does.
really shows in the pattern. So yeah. So I must say that I often do this with my friend Elizabeth, and she's in a much more calmer state than I
Yeah.
usually am.
I'm so surprised because you seemed to me to be so much more calm than I am.
Yes, I think I have this calmness, but in my mind, I'm always doing 100 things at a time.
Yeah.
So I think I think sometimes I compare it with people who have ADD, like they seem calm and quiet, but their creativity is, rising everywhere. And so that's similar to who I am.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm writing like 3 books at the same time,
Yeah.
and or creating 3 courses at the same time, and so in my mind it's all happening at the same time, and I can see it, and I want to create, but somehow I still maintain this calm energy on the outside, but water knows because when
No
I try
fooling,
to
no fooling it at all.
exactly, yeah, I can't fool the water, so because it always shows these busy patterns, and I think, why doesn't it show a little bit more calm expression? Yeah, so water
I
doesn't
have
lie.
to out myself by saying I took one of Veda's seminars, how to do this. Oh gosh, it must have been well, 4 years ago, something like that. And I mean, I remember trying to keep everyone in the house quiet, and I was up in the kitchen by where the freezer was because I wanted to watch this, and I kept getting interrupted. It was like I had everybody like, okay, I'm going to do this for a little while. So can y'all just
Yeah.
leave me alone during this little while? And the answer to that was no. I had to have it on mute all the time. I was constantly, I'm just going to ask. It was just, and it was
Yeah.
frustrating because I thought I had given everybody kind of enough notice that, come on, everyone, can you just, for just
Yeah.
this little while, I want to do this thing. And my
Yeah.
very first one, I'm looking at it and I'm showing Veda. And then she flat says, well, I see that one big thing right there. That's stress. I mean, it's just, she flat called me out. And that really big symbol right there in the middle, that's stress. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
And you're so right. It's like you can't fool the
Yeah.
energy that's happening right there. And
Yeah.
how I
Yeah.
wish it would have been at least for my first one. They got better after that for sure. But it was it was very illuminating
Yeah. Yeah.
how how honest water is in
Yeah.
its
Yeah.
response.
Honest. That's a beautiful word. Honest. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So what
Just
was
like,
your presentation this time around? What did you focus upon?
well, it was about my near-death experience, of course.
Yeah.
And I think it will be too much for now to share, but you know that I've written about my near-death experiences, and um, but I've always focused on the effect that it had and the moment itself, like what was happening with me when I was going straight up to source and I became one with life. But I've never written or talked about the situation that led up to that near death experience. And there are many reasons for that. One of the reasons is because it was very traumatic. There's
Sure.
another reason that I always believe that where we focus on is what we expand. So I
Sure.
always decided, okay, I'm not going to look back at those situations again because I don't want to draw back in the energy of what led up to that near-death experience. And third reason is that I want to share things in order to help people. And I'm not always sure if it is helpful if you would talk about the traumatic part of the situation.
Sure.
And so I've always focused on the positive side and about what it brought me and how beautiful it was. But in this webinar, it was the first time that I spoke about the situation that led up to that experience. And I think it felt like a relief to be able to talk about it, but also a bit scary, like, okay. And
Finally did it after a very long time.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, but it's a long story, so I wouldn't go into that right now.
That's
It's too
okay.
long.
That's okay.
And
I do want to mention that, I think I heard when Veda was being interviewed by, and I'm going to forget who it is right now, but she was being interviewed by somebody who asked her about the car accident,
yeah,
what led up to it. And she actually said, well, I've really never spoken about that before.
yeah,
And the interviewer, I don't know why I can't remember who it was that was interviewing her right now. Um, the interviewer said, well, you don't have to. She says, well, I can't, I can't lie about it. I
yeah,
can't lie about it. And she found herself sharing the story, the
yeah,
actual story about being in this car with this man and what made him turn into that truck.
yeah, yeah,
And she
yeah,
shared that. And when she said that it was the first time she'd ever shared it, I remember because I was listening to this podcast while I was cleaning out stalls in my barn. And I'm just listening to her because I love listening to her when I can catch some of that stuff. And when she
yeah,
started talking about the accident, I set my pitchfork down and I went and sat in a chair and just listen to her story, which was astonishing. It was like every
yeah,
hair on my body
yeah,
stood out like an antenna, and
yeah.
just just so powerful, so
I
powerful.
remember it was so brave, and yeah, and it was so heartfelt that she was able to share that. And I think that actually gave me the courage to do the same during that
Oh,
webinar.
yeah,
Yeah, but it was also like a setting where, okay, it will stay within the
sure.
group of the webinar. And
Well,
it's,
that leads me to ask you this: is the webinar not available for replay? It's gone
only
now.
for the participants, only for the
Okay.
participants. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All
yeah,
right. Well,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
fine. And I meant to go see if I couldn't,
yeah. If
kind of
you
hold that.
enroll, then you should be able to see the replay, I guess.
Nope,
Yeah.
I waited
Yeah.
too long for
Oh yeah, oh
I
yeah,
had absolutely planned on it. It was on my calendar, but what
yeah,
I probably didn't do is realize she had you have to be enrolled X number of hours beforehand, and I didn't
yeah,
know how
yeah.
many, what that
That's
was.
because of the time difference. Because yeah, she's hours ahead of.
Yeah. Well, I knew that though, but it was still 2 hours before it
Ah,
started. So
yes.
I
Yeah.
knew that it was 2 hours before it started, and it was like, but I understand that because you have to go through the stuff and you have to have a cutoff somewhere. You can't go up to the last minute. I get all that. I
Yeah,
get all
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Not to worry about that. Well, thank you for
yeah.
telling me about that. I hate to start to think about wrapping it up, but I think I kind of have to. I've got another recording I'm going to need to do here shortly. But what else would you like to finish up with as far as any of it? The webinar you just gave with VEDA, or the book, or things that are coming up, or anything at all, Patricia?
Well, there was something in my mind a few minutes ago. What was it again? Well, I
Okay,
think. Well, I think what I want to say. I don't know exactly in what words I want to say it. But when we were talking about all these situations about near-death experiences, but we were also talking about uh, birth, pregnancy, and having the right to have our birth process in our own time and our own pace. And I thought when you were saying that, I think there could be a message in that for how we are going through the big shift that we are all going through right now.
yes.
And when we are looking at the world, there's so much going on. And I feel that people feel pushed to take decisions quickly, or feel pushed to go into certain directions, or pushed to take a stand, like to choose one side or another side. And I think it's probably healthy that if we would realize that we have to stay true to ourselves and just stay with us and what we feel, and just stay with our body, stay with our water. And what does our water need? Can you imagine how childbirth would be so much different if a woman going into labor would be able to communicate with her water and to ask her water to break gently and peacefully? Wouldn't that be a completely different energy for a child to enter this world? And I think we could do the same when we are looking at the society where so much is going on, and the media and the television and all kind of sources of information are trying to break through our barriers. I think it's important that we slow down, listen to our body, listen to our water, and stay calm, and only focus, okay, what does my water need? Because I am water. And when we are able to do that, we can do the same for any other person that we are looking into the eyes, because you are water, and what do you need? It's a completely different communication when we take the time to slow down and just to listen to our water. What does my water need? What does your water need? Wouldn't that be? beautiful if we could go through life with that intention.
Yes. That's beautiful. I see no way to top that for ending this beautiful time spent talking with you, Patricia. Thank you so much for
Thank you so much, Candace.
all of these conversations. Okay, so next up between me and Patricia, we will put a somehow we'll put a tandem session on the books. We'll see how we might be able to do that after looking at the calendar a little more closely, but you can count on it. Okay.
I'm really looking forward to that. And thank you so much for your time, Candace.
Oh, thank you for your time as well. Sending you many blessings. And for those of you out there who are looking for a Beyond Quantum healer or a QHHT practitioner or any sort of alternative healer, you can find one at quantumhealers.com. And if you are in service to others in any way at all as a light worker, tarot card reader, or anything like that, you can join us at quantumhealers.com. Come on over. We're a guru-free community. Yep, that's right. That means you can believe what you want and practice the way you want. Nobody tells you what to do. That'd be great to have you show up and join us. So thanks, Patricia, and thanks for being such a long-time member of our community. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Love you, Candace.
Love you too. Patricia's links and the links to Quantum Healers are below. Thanks, everybody. Till next time. Okay, bye.
Bye.